What is up, guys? It is Frotal here, and today we're going to be looking at some stories from r/slash talesfromretail. And, I just really wanted to do this subreddit just because, the stories on here are really interesting. So we're just going to get right into it. Today is going to be a really long story, but, I'm excited for it. It's an epic. The epic tale of the iron blue jeans. The story takes place over the course of a single day, though it did feel like it took a week. There's also a number of people involved in this, and I will introduce them as time goes by. So, it was summer in 2001 in southern Georgia. I was a store manager in training to take over the store I was currently working at. As part of the job, I ran the men's department, and was responsible for deciding whether something in the store could be returned or not. Sometime around 11, a fellow came in and approached the little cashier stand where I worked. He carried with him a pair of jeans. After greeting him, I asked him what I could help him with, and he started his story. Politely, I might add, he explained that his brother had bought the jeans he now held for him as a getting out of jail present. The thing was that the jeans didn't fit. He wanted to know if they could be exchanged for some other ones, but added that his brother had ironed them and kinda scorched them in the process. I told him that had they not been ironed, then sure, I could have returned them. Sadly, now they were damaged by the customer and not valid to be returned. He thanked me and headed out with them. In a perfect world, the story would have ended there. It didn't. Around noon, M, the fellow who I was going to replace, headed out to his hour lunch. B, the other assistant who was slated to take over another store, was working the front while I headed to go do some paperwork. A couple minutes into this, I saw him giving a funny look across the store, really small store, and gesturing me over. Walking over to him, I was presented with a small wiry guy who looked like your typical tweaker. This guy had a pair of jeans and wanted to exchange them. B hands them over to me, and I notice that they're obviously scorched. Damn it, 2 of these in one day? B asked for my second opinion, and I state that no, they can't be returned as they were ironed by the customer. That's when the customer, henceforth called Tweak, started his story. He went on about how we had to exchange them as he still had his receipt, and what's more, they were a gift for his brother who had just gotten out of jail. Wait, back up there. This can't... Nah, it's not the same jeans, is it? He then said that the brother had come in and spoken with a lowly clerk who had refused them, and instead wanted to talk to a manager. Oh, for frick's sake, they are the same jeans. I back up what B said, adding that I was a manager and not some lowly clerk, and that I wasn't going to return these jeans. My mind had been made up before, it wasn't changing now. Tweak started to get a bit antsy at this point, bouncing around and repeating the "but you gotta do it" line over and over. He also was starting to unnerve some of the lady cashiers. That's when a light bulb went off in Tweak's head. He would go over our heads. He wanted to know where M was. We said he was out of the store and would be back in an hour or so. I think we, B and I, expected Tweak to just leave. We weren't so lucky. Tweak takes his jeans and heads outside, waiting in the parking lot. Now remember how I said Tweak was antsy? It got worse once he got out in the parking lot. I didn't get the whole story of this, only a snippet of what happened while he was outside. But the gist of it was when one of our part-time girls, high schoolers, came in to pick up their pay, Tweak said something to her. Something enough to have her call the police on him. B and I pretty much stayed back watching what was going on, trying to figure out what the hell was happening and what episode of the Twilight Zone we just found ourselves in. So weird was this day. Within about 10 minutes, no less than 4 police cars were parked in front of the store. I looked at B and he says simply, "That can't be good." Understatement of the century there. So Tweak takes the arrival of the police as being his cue to come back inside the store, still with the jeans in hand and this big ass beaming grin on his face. He was shortly followed by 2 officers, one of whom I knew as Tiny. Tiny was a 6'8" black man weighing a good 280 pounds and pure muscle. He was also rather soft-spoken and a great guy. As Tiny passes me, I say to him, "Who called you?" He gave me a funny look, blinked, and said, "What, it wasn't you?" I shook my head and he just shrugged. Guess he was having an odd day too. With the police now there, Tweak started to make his case to the officers, as though he expected them to make us return those jeans. It's at this point that M finally returned from his lunch. Now, put yourself in M's shoes for a moment. You head to lunch, store's running fine, and you've got 2 competent managers in charge. When you return, your store is effectively surrounded by police. Yeah, not something you want to see. M comes up about the time Tweak starts off on his explanation to the officer. He asks me what's going on and I give him the general gist of it, and he steps up to the plate. He tells Tweak that he's the store's overall manager and wants to know what's going on. Around this time, Tiny and his partner wander outside. They do not, however, leave. Rather, they take an interest in the car that Tweek had arrived in. Tweek gives M the same story he tried with B, and a similar story to what his brother told me. M listens and then looks at the jeans before explaining that they are damaged by the customer and can't be returned. It's at this point that things turn weird. Well, weirder than they already were. Tweek looks at M and says something to the effect of, "If that's how it's gonna be, you better go get those cops back in here because I'm gonna do something you won't like." M reaches over, taps Tweek on the shoulder with a light pat and says smiling, "Wait right there, I'll be right back." With that, he heads out and back comes Tiny and his partner. Tweek's jaw dropped. I doubt he expected M to actually, go get the cops back. Cops return, escort Tweek out, only to have B run up to the front holding the jeans. "You forgot these!" B calls out, and Tweek snatches them from him and grumbles some. Out in the parking lot, we notice that Tweek's brother is out of the car, in handcuffs, and the police took an even closer interest in Tweek. There's a little scuffle, Tweek tries running away, only to run face first into the parking lot light pole and knock himself right out. Things wound down from then, with Tweek and his brother ending up in jail, again, for both. The jeans never got returned and all was happy. I did eventually ask Tiny, the next time I saw him, what all the events in the parking lot were about. Tiny, through chuckles, explained that when they arrived, one of the officers recognized the brother. He'd been the original arresting officer on him. In any case, while talking to the brother, they had noticed a bag of weed sitting on the back seat. So they were trying to figure out whose it was and had cuffed the brother when he ratted out Tweek, about the time M had come out to get the cops the second time. Tweek, it turned out, had outstanding warrants and so they arrested him. His faceplant with the pole made it easier as he had something of a history of running from the police. So there you go. A story that started with a simple jeans return ended up being one of the weirdest and funniest returns I have ever had to process in my time in retail management. Maybe next I'll relate stories of funny job applications I've seen, such as how someone wanted to apply to be the assistant mangler. Okay, this story is just insane. I can't believe that. That's so funny, bro. They damaged the item, so how did they expect a return? I guess it's worth a try. Like, maybe they'll let you return it even if you damage it. But, like, if they say no, just leave. Just, like, cut your losses and leave. Like, you damaged it. You know you shouldn't be able to return it. So why push the issue? Like, why go outside in the parking lot and start harassing people to the point where they call the cops? Especially if you have warrants out for your arrest. Like, or are you just making a scene? Well, I mean, I guess if you have warrants out for your arrest and you've been going to jail and running from the police, you probably aren't very good at decision making. Come on, bro. Like, this guy needs to grow up. Hopefully he has grown up since this happened. Hopefully he's doing better in his life. Anyway, that was a long one, so I'm only going to be reading one tale from retail this episode, but if you like the story, if you like my voice, if you like my channel, please subscribe and please like, please comment. It really helps my engagement, helps me grow. I work very hard on this channel, so, if you like it, then just show you like it. But anyway, yeah, I'm gonna get going. Bye.